60s. This is a space for women 50 and beyond who are choosing to live with vitality, intention, and joy in this chapter of life and the ones ahead of us. I'm your host, Devora Citron, registered nurse, National Board Certified Health and Wellbeing Coach, and Plant Strong Advocate. On this podcast, we explore what truly helps women thrive in midlife and beyond through evidence-based health insights, real stories, practical strategies, and the deeper sense of meaning that makes life feel rich and connected. I intentionally chose the title, Sexy in Your 60s. When I use the word sexy, I'm not talking about sexuality or how we're seen. I'm talking about energy, confidence, presence, curiosity, purpose. Sexy is how you feel in your body. Sexy is how you move through the world. Sexy is knowing who you are and choosing how you want to show up. I believe this stage of life isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. Not in your 60s? You're still invited to join us. Each episode is designed to support you not just in how you live, but in how you feel in your body, your relationships, and your life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. My guest today embodies what it means to live a creative, engaged, and evolving life over time. Wendra Lynne is a visual artist, production designer, author, and illustrator whose career has taken her across the U.S. and around the world. She has been a longtime member of the Motion Picture Industry Art Directors Guild and served as an art director for major national and international campaigns for iconic brands including IBM, Hallmark, Levi's, Mercedes, Disney, Visa, and Bank of America. Research shows that engaging in creative practices like painting, illustrating, and writing supports brain health, emotional resilience, and cognitive vitality as we age. Wendra's work and life reflect that science. Creativity isn't something she's done once or well in the past. It's something she continues to return to, deepen, and reinvent. Beyond the impressive scope of her career, what makes Wendra's story especially compelling is how she continues to explore creativity as a living practice. She is a painter, a writer, an illustrator, a yoga practitioner who understands the connection between movement, presence, and creative flow. Today's conversation is about what it means to keep creating, listening, and evolving, not just professionally, but personally, through different seasons of life. It's about staying curious, embodied, and open to what's next. I'm truly honored to welcome my friend, Wendra Lynne. Welcome,
Thank
Wendra.
you. Thank you so much, Devora. I'm so appreciative and lucky to be here, and I'm so inspired by what you're doing. And hearing the description of me was quite an experience to hear yourself through the eyes of being presented by someone else. And interesting, I already brought up the thought that part of creativity is finding that balance between being interested in so many things and letting myself go take detours and then coming back to being in focus. So just listening to all the different things I do and then finding that thread between them is part of being the path of creativity, I think.
Wendra, you are one of the most creative, spiritual people I have ever met, and you've provided a lot of support and grounding to me. One of the things I'm so amazed about is the different mediums that you work in. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that from the perspective of going back in your professional life. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an artist.
Wow. You and I have known each other since kindergarten. And honestly,
Since the first day of kindergarten.
Okay, first day. It was really at that age that I already knew. I remember splatter painting. I remember doing painting of my mom and bringing it home and being very proud. And I think that creativity shows up in all different mediums for everybody. For me, it was just visual because part of who I am just incarnated as visualizing in my mind first, and painting was a way of communicating as opposed to talking. I was shy. Creativity can be the way you do a business or the way you speak or write or cook or anything. For some reason, a lot of people only associate art with visual art, but there's so many ways of being creative. And that's one of the things that I've circled back to now is when I teach, we use watercolors as our medium, but they're really just such an accessible medium to exercise that muscle of creativity that you can use in other areas of your life. So,
So
yeah, I started painting young and then really found my way through a career where I could apply those skills. As I was growing up, I had a lot of growing up to do emotionally as an adult.
I've known you ever since we were in kindergarten, as you mentioned, and I have memories of how artistic you were from the very beginning, which is pretty phenomenal. What I hear you saying right now is that you actually recognized early on that your art, your creativity as an artist was where you could explore and grow your identity.
Yeah, for sure. That was where I felt the most comfortable. And I feel really lucky for that. Of course, there were times throughout life where you question it. As an artist, you're always questioning that. I applied for other jobs and none of them ever came through. I remember taking a typing test at one office job and the lady came in and she said, "We are closing now. Are you done with your test?" And just things like that where I would apply for a 9 to 5 and it just wasn't even in the consideration set. But then an artistic opportunity would come up and it just would happen with ease. To that degree, I also there is an element of spirituality and creativity, and when you're going with the flow, and you've heard this, when you're in the zone, things happen naturally and they open up for you, and that's one of the things that I am so drawn to in being creative and sharing creativity with others. It's a form of meditation and connecting to source energy or whatever your spirituality is.
You really are vulnerable when you're producing art and sharing it with the world, whoever you're sharing it with, because people are going to have a response or a reaction to it, and that's going to affect you very much. So I imagine you have to be very brave. It's funny, juxtaposed what you describe as being shy, which I know you were shy as a young child, but you also had to be and still have to be pretty brave to put your creativity out there.
Yeah, that's true. Reflecting back with what you're saying is that art is so subjective, no matter what you do. And that's the beauty of it, that everybody has different tastes. And we don't want a world that's manufactured all the same. That's the beauty of art. But because it is so subjective, you're never going to please everybody. And there is always a risk. You want to please at least enough people and connect with the people that resonate with your work, but you have to please yourself too. So it's like that in anything we do, but with art, especially because it is so subjective and it's not quantitative as other careers are. Even in advertising, there's going to be various opinions, and it's really just based on feeling and opinion. Then there's that whole psychology about how you present it with how much confidence and all that. Really, what's come up for me is that I've always worked in creative fields and I've been fortunate to do that. Now I feel more brave, more confident to do the things that I want to do. There were people who came out of art school right away who just dove into this is who I am. I'm a fine artist. I'm doing this. I wasn't ready for that. Even though I wanted that, I needed to work in advertising. I needed to get the feedback from other people. I needed to see how people with confidence moved through the world. And that allowed me to have a daughter, be in a family, create a life for myself, and gain confidence. And now I am doing the projects that are more important to me with the confidence I didn't have when I was younger. That's one of the gifts of aging for sure.
Well, even though we know that with aging comes wisdom, as you're describing, it does sound like you were pretty intentional in how you decided to focus at different points in your life so that you could pivot and shift when it was time for you to be more family centric and raise your daughter. You were able to choose to do that.
Definitely. I found a balance when my daughter was young between working in an industry where I worked in commercials. So I had downtime in between. So I would be home for part of the time and then commuting to work in between projects. And then when everything turned digital and there was so much more that was done in a different way through art directing, I also had to change and start thinking, how do I fit in here? And what other skills can I develop as far as my painting and the things that gave me joy that I could contribute different than people who were coming in younger than me who were really much more adept at using the computer. I've taught myself on the computer, but I wasn't born into the computer age. I love that you do so much technology. I think that's so amazing. Um, Changing as the industry changes and doing things that now I teach. When you're teaching, you start to reflect and dissect your own process and how to explain it to others. It's been a great opportunity for me to look at my own process as well. I love sharing creativity with people and seeing them feel comfortable and completing something. It's such a great joy to see other people get the joy of creating something that they're proud of and enjoying the process. Because especially in art school, there's so much judgment, and we all have so much of our own judgment in our minds to learn to quiet that while we're in the process.
I want to bring together three concepts points you just mentioned. One is flow, the other is digital competence, and the other is teaching. This is a great point to share that throughout the history of our friendship and connection, one of the ways we got more connected after many years of loose connection was during COVID. During COVID, I was offering a regular meditation mindfulness program and you joined in on it. And I was so grateful for that. And then you offered a watercolor and yoga mindfulness experience,
Yeah.
which I joined in and basically subscribed to. And I found it to be one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. And I just have to describe it a little. You might think that you're rudimentary in your digital skills, but somebody who can teach watercolor painting online to a group of people and started off with a yoga experience and then connect all those people to each other, you have to be really pretty adept at all of these different things. If you listeners ever get the chance to participate in one of Wendra's online watercolor experiences, it's just like nothing else you've ever done before. She integrates a yoga and a mindfulness practice that is centered on the topic of the painting. By the time you open your eyes to start your watercolor painting, you're really embodying the subject of what she's chosen. She guides you through the painting process by demonstrating, and she's already provided you with examples of what you're going to paint. Watercolor painting is such an experience where you get to release and you really flow. You just have to let go of everything. You do not worry about any distractions. You don't really have to worry about how it turns out because once you learn about how it works, you just release your sense of control, which I think is such a liberating thing for all of us. Wendra asks the different people in the group to share. You have to be pretty brave to share your own little creation. when you see other people's and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that is amazing." It's just such a fun experience and also very enlightening to see that other people created the exact same thing in a different way.
Yeah.
And what you also did was you connected people during COVID from all over the world. We were so appreciative of that. And we know that longevity and positive aging, that connection is one of the deepest things that we can have to promote that.
Oh, thank you. That so touches my heart to hear. You're so great at describing your experience, and it just reminds me of our time. I don't think I valued it as much as I should have. I default to self judgment and is everything going well? I do enjoy sharing that process with others. It's like a ballerina. You think they study so hard and they make it look so easy. So much goes behind the process where you start, you have to get into the right headset, relax, let go, all the things that you were describing that set the momentum towards doing a painting. I love watercolor for that reason. It's related to ancient Sumi painting, the way I teach, which is being in the present moment, capturing, we're not illustrating highly rendered things. We have AI to do that now. But to capture a moment in time and a feeling, and even if it's not consciously exactly what you had envisioned, just going with the flow of what's there in front of you. I just think it's magic. It's fun to share.
It is magic and it is so emotionally healthy for us to have that kind of practice. Is that a conscious part of your art? And how does that integrate with your spiritual practice and your yoga?
Yeah, it's definitely a conscious part. When we started out, you said you work in so many mediums. For me, I have a very active mind. And to get to quiet my mind, I need to do yoga first. And then also the type of painting that I like to do for just for my energetic type of person is an oil painting. They would call it alla prima, but in the moment and with watercolor, I don't know, I just call it watercolor sketching or sumi painting. Um, I made a conscious choice that I didn't want to be someone who just did highly rendered art, which can be incredibly beautiful too. But I need enough time in my life to also go out and not be, it's not healthy for me to be in my studio alone for too many hours. So I had to develop, and I still am developing how much quicker can I paint, not because I want to rush through something, but because I want to get out of my head and be in the present moment and capture the essence of what I'm painting. And if I go too slowly, my head starts getting in the way.
So it sounds like you do that to keep yourself in that flow versus
Yes,
analyzing. Oh, is it the way I want
exactly.
it? Should I do it differently? Like you said, maybe self-judgment.
Yes. It's similar to my yoga practice, which of course there's days where I now do yin yoga, but when I first started yoga, I did ashtanga or a flow yoga, which for people with busy minds, the more you're flowing and you're in your body. And then actually the goal is when you get to Shavasana or the resting pose, your mind is quiet enough to be there without all that judgment. So it's similar practice for me with my art. I need to start with quick, like a lot of in art school, you start with quick sketches, you do the nude or the model fast, and then you begin to slow down. And some of those quick sketches, I've thrown out hundreds or laughed at thousands. They look really funny and weird. You just have to keep a sense of humor because they're not going to all be perfect. They're not going to be what you want to show. Um, it has been a conscious decision to go in that direction for me.
What I think not everybody will kind of realize is that you use your art professionally. You use it for economic sustainable reasons to make a living, but you also use it for neuroregulation.
Yeah,
You use it
100%.
as a way of self-care.
Yeah, I've never even heard that term neuroregulation, but I like it. Did you just make it up?
No, that's what yoga is. Yoga is neuroregulation, regulating your nervous system. When we get together and we start by taking a few deep breaths, that's neuroregulating, activating our parasympathetic nervous system and calming our body and our mind down, like you said. That's what we do in yoga, but you're saying you know how to do that with your different ways of painting and artistic creation. That's really phenomenal.
It's a conscious decision, and it's something as a child, I think I learned to observe how people regulate their nervous system no matter what they're doing, watching my teacher or my parents or when they were in that space of doing that or not. And I'm just a sensitive person. And when things were out of balance, it felt uncomfortable. I didn't want to be there. I like your description. I've always thought of yoga as more the literal translation for me has always been like a yoking of body, mind, and spirit, which is similar, just less scientific.
Mhm. One of the hallmarks of your career is how varied it's been. The uniting factor is always artistic creation. But you have pivoted, and I'll go so far as to say reinvented yourself over and over throughout your life. We're both 64. We grew up in an age where you were expected to have one profession, one career,
Mhm.
but you have done so many different things and you continue to do so many different things. Can you talk a little bit about that process in general, about pivoting and shifting and the awareness it takes to analyze what's calling you right now and what might work?
Through my experience, I'm just remembering some of the things, different hats I've worn. There was a period when I was commuting to LA to work. And then there was a period during that time, I guess they called it the .com, when there wasn't as much work. When we shifted to digital, it does tie back to yoga and being brave and just being in the present and see what opens up. So at that point, I was living in Seattle area. I started doing more work in home staging because I happened to have friends that were in real estate. So then I could translate my skills in that way. When I moved to Texas, I didn't have the same connections I had in the industry. So I needed to start over again and put myself on the lists here, the call lists and things like that. In the meantime, I was at an age where I needed the magnifying glass, and I had always been into crystals and healing with that. So I created this magnifying glass using crystals and created an online business because to me it related to perception and it was authentic to where I was in life. It made one for me and other people were asking for it. I could do that from home. I could do it from anywhere. So I have my little online, you can find it on my website.
I'll put a link to that. Talk a little bit more about the magnifying glass and explain what it is. And if you have one, you can show it to us because it's particularly relevant for women ages 50 and above. I know we are all needing things when we're trying to look at those menus with tiny fonts.
Yes, that's how it came about. I was actually out to dinner with my husband and I asked him when is he going to order for dinner and he said he he was going to starve because he couldn't see the menu anymore and then I was very disappointed because I wanted to know what I was going to get to eat off of his plate. I l- I was one to have reading glasses on my head and walk around saying, "I can't find my reading glasses." And you're on your head or what room are they in or we'd go out and I'd forget to bring them. What happened was we were in Venice, Italy, and there was all these beautiful glass shops. And I thought I saw one of these in a glass shop. And then I went back, they have those winding little ways. And so I thought I saw it. I wanted to go back to find it because I was like, I really need to get that. And I couldn't find it. Everyone I saw was like a little too vintagey, a little too many scrolls, looked like grandma's. Like it just wasn't something. And then the only type of jewelry I was wearing at the time was natural crystal jewelry because as an artist, again, color, vibration, all of that, I only wore things that were meaningful to me. This is an example of one. It's just a pretty simple one I do. Being who I am, I make them in sterling silver with different charms and all different designs. You can see them on Etsy or on my website. This one is rose quartz for the heart, and it's on natural suede, and they're all adjustable length. Honestly, yes, people our age, but when I do craft shows, you'd be surprised at how many young people, because of the computer, have eye strain already and are drawn to these, and how many little kids, if you have grandchildren, quite often it's the little kids that bring their parents over to my booth because they are just so drawn to the magical quality of the light and being able to enlarge little tiny, like things like insects or flowers and things like that. So I love that it crosses over all generations, honestly, even though people seem to classify it as something for older people.
I guess you just made a sale for me because I never thought of getting them for my granddaughters.
It's fun. I've had a mom buy one for herself and then all of her kids so they could go out hiking together and look at insects and things.
That's great. Tell me if I'm getting this right because you've done one for me, an individual tarot reading with painted art.
Yeah.
It's so unique. I've never seen anything like it before. I know you know me, but you were doing a reading and then you came up with this beautiful piece of art within minutes. I was amazed at how quickly you did it, how beautiful it was, and how accurate your description of me was.
Tarot cards are something I've also been interested in because of, I guess, in some ways related to what did you call it?
Neuroregulation.
Neuroregulation, because they are in some ways related to Jungian or symbology for self-reflection. When I was younger, of course, I was fascinated by them more as like fortune telling and what could I do to, like, I wanted to know the future. I started studying them very young, but didn't really practice until later when I was able to use them more as self-reflection. And so I'm memorizing all the different symbols. Tarot has become very popular again. The watercolor interpretations for over a decade. I'm in awe of how articulate you are. I sit here and you just sum me up and our experience so beautifully with words. And I could do readings and I'd get a sense, but I wasn't able to get the words out as quickly as I could paint something. I started doing this combination of reading and describing what I was painting with the watercolors to help give people the experience and a little gift when they left, a little memory that they could use for meditation later. Some of the tarot cards, they're ancient. There's the most common deck now is probably only 200 years old, but it does have symbology that is already, because life is always evolving, outdated and a little scary. When you look at some of these, oh, the devil card or the tower, or, oh my gosh, how do I interpret that in a way that's positive and how do I move through, work with that energy? It's fun to repaint and tie it together in that way. I'm painting a tarot deck of my own. I'm hoping to get that done in 2026, just because I love tarot and I want the opportunity to do some cards that reflect my perception of the symbology.
So you create so many different types of art, but what I think is very special about you is that you're willing to work with people and individualize pieces or projects or creations for them based on their unique requests or qualities. Or I know that you'll do portraits for people or even do portraits of their pets. Do you do a lot of that
Yeah,
right now?
I do. And again, another kind of conscious decision. And I love beautiful art and I love going to museums. And of course, every artist was like dreams of, oh, I wish my art was in a museum one day. And that takes focus.
Isn't it not until after they die?
Not always, but yeah, quite more, very often. So maybe I don't wish for my art to be in a museum yet. No, but there are definitely artists that are in museums in their lifetime. But there's just something about me, maybe it's a little bit of my rebellious spirit or whatever. Like I never let myself completely focus and cater to that kind of, it's almost an elitist thing in some ways. Yeah, this is a whole conversation that could be argued. There are, of course, activist artists that make huge, big paintings that are rebellious political statements. And they would not say, oh, I'm elitist. If anything, I'm anti-elitism and all that. But I guess on a smaller scale, for me, it's about interacting and making art that's approachable. And I love the experiences. I love the teaching. I love, like you were describing, the interaction of the watercolor tarot readings or painting someone's personal pet for them. And these small little droplets in water that resonate out. Not to say that there's a part of my ego that wouldn't love to do huge paintings in the Louvre one day or whatever, but I'm still in the process. I just love interacting with people still, and it helps me learn and grow as well. I do have some big paintings, but you do big paintings, and then you know, sometimes you get fortunate. Like I did one and I and I brought it out to the craft fair, and right when I got there, someone bought it. But you can also just fill your house with big paintings. Where are they going to go?
This makes me feel like we need to plan a trip to Paris together.
That would be so fun. I love travel. Any way I can incorporate work with travel is.
I'll just have to add an anecdote that it's been almost 2 years. We went on no, it's been 3 years maybe, has it? We went on a yoga trip together in Mexico in
Right.
a little village called Yalapa. And when we were together, we bought some art on the street. And
Yeah.
the art I bought was this handmade paper art, and I had it framed, put in my house. It's amazing looking. So
I love mine. It's the bottom of our stairwell. I remember together going shopping for that. It was so fun. Such a
Wendra, I want to pivot. You've launched a successful career as an author. Talk a little bit about how you did that and what's going on with that right now.
For me, it's about storytelling and emotional storytelling and about the things that I care about. I've done a lot of different writing, honestly, through poetry and screenplays. The one that is published is the picture book that I wrote with Coffee about the cloud forest because I care about animals. It's a story that I really felt was timely and in the environment. I did that picture book and it's rhyming, but you know what? I struggled with the words. The words took me forever and the painting went faster than the words because I really reaching for words and meter and rhyme and all that. It's a challenge. So I'm on my second book now. I was looking at that book today and I'm super proud of it. There's nothing I would have done different. I'm just actually in awe of the magical, how it all came together. So now I'm doing another book. People had asked because it's been quite a while, almost 5 years. When are you going to do another book? Because it really came out great. It was such a limited market, the cloud forest and those endangered species. And then finally, I woke up one morning with this idea to do it through the coffee beans point of view. And so this has been a whole new thing for me because as an artist, I learned to be an illustrator and evoke emotion through being able to catch certain likenesses. I wasn't a tight illustrator, but I could make things look like they do in real life. Then this little bean, coffee bean, came to me. And it is a whole new process. I'm trying to get into how do I create and have the joy and the experience of something and let go of having it be illustrated. It's and just yesterday I was thinking and going back and looking at what is it about characters and cartoon characters that I really love and how something like that's so simple but so amazing, like Snoopy, just a few lines because I love Snoopy.
I remember.
And just look at the longevity of Snoopy. Another process, another type of art where have done numerous iterations. I illustrated the bean and it's growing. It's like, this is so boring. This is not going to work. I'm going to have to find the essence of this coffee bean character. So I'm in the process of it now and I'm really enjoying it. And what drives me really is to remind myself that the story behind it is about connection, about conservation, and bringing awareness. Most people don't know that shade-grown coffee is hugely different than sun-grown coffee, and that when a coffee bean is grown in the shade, that means that it was most likely single-sourced in a small farm. Trees were not cut down, animals were not displaced, the soil was replenished, all of that, which is the opposite of sun-grown, huge conglomerate coffee grown. So these small choices we make in life, if you wake up and you think you're not making a difference, just by the coffee you're deciding to drink, even if I know budgets are tight right now, but the few cents more you spend on a coffee that's shade grown makes a huge difference. So we can all make differences in small ways.
I didn't really know that about the difference between shade grown and sun grown coffee. I'm not even sure what mine is, but I'm guessing it might be sun grown. Your focus on environmentalism and sustainability is pretty unique for an artist. I'm not trying to put other artists down. I know that's a really core value for you. I know you paint with coffee, but you don't just infuse it into your creation. You use your art as a vehicle for educating people.
It's interesting. Talk about sexy in your 60s. When I was younger, it was debilitating for me because I did not want to do anything that was destructive to the environment or things I cared about. And then ironically, I ended up working in advertising on these commercials for companies that were, one of them was for a very large tea company. I won't say the name because we don't know where this is going to go, but, and I was so happy that it was for a tea commercial. And then the clients came to the stage and we found out that company was owned by a bigger company that was owned by a bigger company that was sending bombs to some country for, you don't know how all anything that's commercial is going to be affecting the world. I used to let all these things get me down and it was just awful. I couldn't focus on what kind of art I wanted to do. I was really happy when this kind of came together because I'd been painting in so many mediums. This allowed me to focus on watercolors and coffee. And then more recently, as I've aged, I really realizing it's great to care about animals and all of this. And on the other hand, I've really learned to let go and realize it's a beautiful planet and everybody's doing the best they can. And I don't have to save the world through my art. And I can actually do it now just from the joyful place because the earth, I do believe now, is self-regulating to some degrees, which doesn't mean we shouldn't stop trying, but carrying such a big burden was a lot when I was younger.
What you're doing is describing what we get to do as women of our age. We get to shed a lot of the things that we were holding on to that at the time seemed so relevant and important.
Yeah.
And we felt so compelled to stay committed to.
Yeah. I feel it's really important not to lose that passion. And at the same time, as I've gotten older, I've learned to gain confidence and trust that every soul out there, every sociological thing has its own course, and I can participate without feeling the burden of it, but keep that passion that you're describing. Is just, yeah, there's a balance there.
I wanted to ask you how your relationship with purpose has changed. And I feel like you just described it. It's become, in a way, more spiritual.
Yes, yes. 100%. And especially as I've gotten older, the tarot cards and all of that, it is more of a challenging as we get older, at least for me. I've lost people in my life and people who were close to me, my parents, my brother. So there's this sense of connecting with them and believing that there's other realms or sensing that there's other realms. Everything's become more spiritual.
Can you describe at this point in life what helps you feel more connected to yourself and aligned with what's important to you?
The thing I keep coming back to is what makes you sexy at this age, what I believe is sexy. And I think when people do things that they love and bring them joy, that is very sexy to be around somebody who's doing something, it's contagious.
Mm.
For instance, you doing this is just so beautiful. Like you love doing this. You love sharing about healthy nutrition, aging, consciousness, and you love sisterhood and friendships and with women and empower. And it's so fun to be around you because of it and to be on this podcast with you and to see you really enjoy the whole technology of it and everything related to it. So I love that basically you are walking your talk. People get out there and they lecture, but this is a process for you. You've had to learn so much just to be able to share your knowledge, but it doesn't feel like a burden. It's because you love doing it. And so that's very sexy. Podcast is sexy, but that
Well,
is sexy to me. Something that I'm around that inspires me to feel enlivened when I see you feeling enlivened.
what you're saying is passion and authenticity. I think authenticity is key.
It's always a balance, but give ourselves time to do things that bring us joy, like attending one of my classes. And this is not like a pitch to come to one of my classes, but there's different times in our lives when we can make time for things like that. And there's times like, and I know when I was younger, it's like I had to make choices to just to pay the rent for my daughter and I. But you still can find time to do the little things. Maybe at that point it was gardening in the morning or taking a walk or whatever it is that raises your vibration and it just makes you happy. We all want to be around people who are doing that. That's why it's so fun to share it and to inspire others to do the things that they love. When I think of my daughter and she's had a good weekend and she shares something she's done with me that she's enjoyed, that makes me feel so good. At least from the way I was brought up, I think our generation has done a good job of encouraging that because there used to be some stigma around being, oh, you're being so selfish with your time. And it's, oh, it's being self-centered and self-nurturing. And that allows you to give more, which is more of a reciprocal.
That's perfect. You are the embodiment of that. And I think that we've together in our dialogue illustrated so many different ways that you do that, that you stay balanced and neuroregulated. I want the listeners to always also think about when they're listening to our podcast interviews, what's a way they can bring what they've been hearing into their own lives? What's one small way that people can invite more creativity or presence into their daily life? And what do you wish women knew about aging and creative expression?
I think I'm going to relate it back to yoga when I first started doing yoga. Small doses. Like you don't have to sit down and do like your magnus opus. You can be creative in some ways, beginning by how you're perceiving the world and looking at color. And when you're on your walk, seeing how would I paint this if I was painting it, right? Small doses. Maybe you're just in your room and the way you rearrange a few things and then let that kindle when you get your yoga mat out in the morning. I have to trick myself. I don't say, I'm going to do an hour of yoga. I say, I'm going to do 5 minutes of stretching. And then sometimes it turns into 20. So the same thing with creativity and painting. I would say, put your paints out where they're accessible. And if you feel like just mixing a little color and then dropping some other color into it and see how it goes, set the bar low so you can feel that joy of the process and then let it just flow into whatever feels natural next. No pressure on yourself.
So keep things accessible.
Yeah.
When I do take the watercolor classes with you, one of the things I notice when I go for walks in my neighborhood, which is beautiful nature all around, is all the different greens. Because when we do watercolor, we have to use all these different greens. And I start to think of the names of all the different greens and notice the difference in the subtlety of the shades or the brightness of the shades, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Notice it's creative.
So, what do you wish women knew about aging and creative expression?
I think I think we all need to appreciate that we are all creative in different ways, and that's a beautiful thing. And to appreciate each other's creativity, whether it be, like for me, it might be watercolor, but it might be the way you move through a room or how you greet your guests or the way you cook. Creativity is for me being in the present moment, really, just being and letting source energy move through you in the way that's, as you said, most authentic. So it doesn't have to be a painting. It could just be being authentic and letting people see who you are in the moment and appreciating that about yourself.
I hope that the listeners can hear that if they are ever so fortunate to get the opportunity to be present with you, that all of this shines through, all your glowing warmth, sexiness shines through.
Back at you. Anyone who gets the opportunity to work with you, especially one-on-one or in one of your classes or courses, you're just effervescent and you always have been. You've always had that kind of twinkly star quality. And I'm so happy to see you have this time in your life to be able to share it with more people.
Thank you, Wendra. So, if people want to connect to you and find out more about you and what you're doing, I'm going to have information on the show notes and links, but tell us quickly where listeners can find you online.
The one easiest place is through my website. It's bywendra, bywendra.com, because I do so many different things. It's all the different things I do. And you can email me through my website or email me directly, wendralynne@me.com. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me, and thanks for inspiring me by all your progress. And I loved listening to your podcast, and I can't wait to listen to the other episodes.
Wendra, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. If today's conversation resonated with you, I invite you to take the next gentle step by downloading the Sexy in Your 60s Starter Guide, a free resource designed to help you reflect on what supports your energy, vitality, and sense of connection in this season of life. You'll find it linked in the show notes or at slant2plants.com/starter-guide. You can also explore more of my work, including health coaching, plant-forward nutrition, and resources for vibrant living at slant2plants.com. And for the ultimate transformation, join the Sexy in Your 60s coaching experience at sexyinyour60s.com. If this episode spoke to you, please consider following the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing it with someone who might need it right now. That's how these conversations continue to grow. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay curious, and stay boldly, beautifully sexy, exactly as you are.